Everybody come see us on tour. We'll be in Columbus, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.
So Jolly West is kind of a running thread in the book, not only, I mean, towards the end, not only through Manson, through the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic, but also there are Jack Ruby connections with him, and he was working with Sidney Gottlieb. So can you explain that?
Yeah. He was kind of a zealot, for the 20th century.
Right.
He would appear in the middle of this historic, usually history-altering event, and then somehow manipulate it, insert himself. The first one that brought him to some prominence was in the early 50s when these American prisoners of war in the Korean War started proclaiming that they had been using biological weapons, which were against, all the treaties we have with the world in North Korea or in Korea. And the United States had to say, no, we're not using biological weapons. These prisoners were brainwashed or coerced to say that. So when the war ended and they were returned, they were brought actually to Valley Forge Military Academy, some of them, for deprogramming. I grew up about 5 miles from there. And West and a team of about 5 psychiatrists were the ones who deprogrammed them and announced that they had been brainwashed using sensory deprivation, sleep deprivation, mind-altering drugs, and they weren't responsible for what they'd said. In truth, we had used the weapons. What I believe, and what people who know more about this subject than I do believe, was that they were brainwashed when they got here by those psychiatrists to say that they'd been brainwashed over there and to, not know what happened to them. So that's when he first got prominence. Then when the John F. Kennedy assassination happened, followed by Lee Harvey Oswald getting shot by Jack Ruby, West became his psychiatrist. And it's a lot of detail there, but just to say that the day that West became his psychiatrist and examined him for the first time in privacy with nobody else, no witnesses, he came out and announced to a press conference that in the preceding 48 hours, Ruby had a psychotic break from which he'd never recover, that he was hallucinating, auditory and visual hallucinations. He saw other people in the room with him. He hid under the table. He told West he could hear Jewish children being boiled alive outside of his jail cell. There was no evidence of any of that in the prior year and a half of his custody. And what's important is this happened right when when Ruby was going to give his version of his shooting of Oswald for the first time to the Warren Commission. And from that day onward, his mind was scrambled. He made no sense. And when he finally did testify to the commission, they had to stop it because he wasn't making any sense. He was psychotic. And what I found in these letters that West had written to Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, who was the poisoner in chief of the CIA, he was the one who created the MKUltra program and ran it for 20 some years. One of the things West said he was going to do was induce insanity in a person without their awareness, and then using drugs like LSD and that type of thing. So in the book, there's a circumstantial case that we can't trust anything the Warren Commission reported because there was a conflict. They had a CIA agent who I have proven worked for the CIA starting in 1953, who penetrated their investigation. They called Jack Ruby the most important witness in their investigation because he was the one who silenced the assassin or the suspected assassin.
Right.
Then West went on and ends up in the Haight-Ashbury right when Manson arrives, and in the same building for the summer when Manson evolves into this hippie cult leader who had complete control over his followers to the point where he could tell them to go out and kill a stranger and they wouldn't question it, they'd do it. This was what MKUltra was created to do, programmed assassins.
Right, and this is the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic, where Jolly
Yeah.
West is there at the same time as Manson, and you say
Yeah.
Jolly West set up a fake commune around the corner from the clinic to draw in hippies, which sounds very similar to the techniques they would use in Operation Midnight Climax, which you also talk about, where they would have prostitutes lure in men off the street and experiment on them. It sounds like West was doing something similar with this commune.
Yeah, the same neighborhood. I mean, that was in San Francisco. That Midnight Climax began, I think, in 1962 in San Francisco and was run by George Hunter White. And West took a leave of absence from University of Oklahoma, where he ran the psychiatry department and the neuroscience center, to go to the Stanford Research Institute for a year. He was supposed to write a book called The Induction of Abnormal States, which he never published. He never did any of his required work for getting this, this year. He got a lot of money to be there for a year to study. He was supposed to speak. He went right to the Haight and started studying hippies. Everything was unorthodox with him. So much.
You also say, like, what you found in the letter, the conventional narrative about the Manchurian Candidate is, yes, they committed crimes against people. You had psychiatrists who were secretly performing experiments on their patients. They were experimenting on prisoners, but it was a crazy pipe dream. It never worked. This attempt to be able to implant the will to assassinate and then erase the memory. But West says in his letters, they did actually accomplish that.
By 1955 to 56, he reported back to the CIA that he had accomplished one of their main goals, which was, as he put it, he had developed the technology to remove true memories from a human subject and replace them with false memories without their awareness and make that permanent. I mean, once you can change someone's memory without their knowledge, then, that's quite a weapon to use, for warfare or for anything. And when the program got exposed around 1975, and then they had the hearings from 1975 to 78, 3 different congressional hearings, the CIA, they were caught, but they had already destroyed all of these records.
Right.
And they basically said, like sheepishly, we did this stuff. It was misguided. We accomplished nothing. We're sorry. We might have experimented on people without their knowledge, but it proved, they allowed themselves to look like idiots in order to protect this. And I proved that just by the one document that West had submitted to them, telling them what he had done. They shared what they could with Congress. They had to, and they gave an abbreviated document of that report, and they removed, 2 paragraphs, which were the 2 paragraphs of West saying he had done it. In their report, it said he was trying to do it. So they clearly manipulated the evidence in front of Congress in 1976, 77.
All right, so this has long been rumored about, and you mentioned this yourself in your Rogan interview. This has long been rumored about Sirhan, that he was a Manchurian Candidate. Is that something you're going to get into in your next book? Have you found evidence for that?
I didn't find any more evidence than the people who've been reporting and researching the subject a lot longer than I did, and they found some compelling stuff. I was hoping to find some kind of link between West and Sirhan, but I honestly wasn't able to. And that's why there's nothing really about, that assassination in my book. I do have some new information that's compelling that kind of feeds into it, and I'm still reporting on that. But I don't want to mislead you and make you think that I've got some big, exciting, sensational evidence that Sirhan was programmed. I do believe he was, but again, there are other better researchers than I who got that stuff, who've spent a lot more time on it and have already published their books.
Everybody come see us on tour. We'll be in Columbus, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.